Tonight, when it gets dark outside, you'll reach over and flip a switch. The room will fill with light, and you won't even register it as a decision. But for 99.9% of human history, that switch didn't exist. When the sun dropped below the horizon, the world went completely black. You couldn't see your own fingers in front of your face. For more than 300,000 years, every person who came before you spent roughly half their life inside near total darkness. For most of that span, there wasn't even a candle, just the night sky, the stars, and whatever flame they managed to keep burning. So what exactly were they doing with all those hours? The answer reshapes everything we assume about sleep, storytelling, and what it means to be human. Let's begin with fire, because none of this works without it. The earliest confirmed evidence of humans controlling fire comes from Wonderwerk Cave in South Africa, dating back roughly 1 million years. But fire didn't just provide heat, it rebuilt the human daily schedule. Before fire, our ancestors behaved like every other primate. Once the sun disappeared, you climbed somewhere safe or tucked into shelter, and you stopped moving. Wandering at night meant becoming somebody's dinner. Human eyes are genuinely poor in darkness compared to the predators stalking us. Leopards, hyenas, wolves all saw fine in the dark. Fire flipped that equation instantly. A burning fire creates a protective radius of roughly 30 feet. Inside that circle, predators stay away. Step outside it, and the odds turn against you fast. Researchers studying hunter-gatherer communities today have documented that people who wander from the fire at night face measurably higher risk of predator attacks, even now. Fire did more than keep people alive after dark, though. It handed humans something they had never possessed before: extra time. Before fire, your productive day ended when the sun went down. Maybe 12 hours in summer, as few as 8 during winter. Fire added 2 to 4 extra usable hours to every single day. Multiply that across thousands of generations, and you get a species reshaped by firelight. In 2014, anthropologist Polly Wiesner published research in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. She spent years recording actual conversations among the Jew Huanzi people of the Kalahari Desert, one of the last communities on Earth still living close to humanity's original lifestyle. During daylight hours, roughly 80% of conversation was purely practical. Who's hunting where? Which plants are ripe? Logistics, complaints, negotiations. But once night fell, and people gathered around the fire, the entire texture of conversation transformed. About 81% of nighttime talk became stories, tales of distant places, adventures, origin myths, jokes that had the entire camp laughing. Wiesner's conclusion was bold. Firelight conversation is where human culture was born. The campfire functioned as the original theater, the original school, the original place of worship. It's where humans first learned to think past the immediate moment and imagine things that didn't yet exist. But the night held more than fireside stories. Something else was happening. Something researchers only rediscovered within the last 30 years. You were never designed to sleep the way you sleep tonight. In 2001, historian Roger Ekirch published research that completely rewrote sleep science. He'd spent 16 years combing through historical archives and uncovered something nobody anticipated. More than 500 references spanning centuries, prayer manuals from the 1400s, court documents, personal diaries, medical texts, ordinary letters, even passages buried in Homer's Odyssey. All of them referenced the exact same thing: a first sleep and a second sleep. Before the industrial era, people did not sleep in a single continuous stretch. They went to bed not long after sunset, slept roughly 4 hours, then woke. They stayed alert for 1 to 2 hours in the dead of night. Then they drifted back into sleep for another 4 hours until daybreak. This wasn't insomnia. This was completely standard for thousands upon thousands of years. So what did people do during that wakeful middle stretch? Practically everything. A 16th century French physician advised couples to conceive children specifically during this window, claiming the results would be superior. People visited neighbors. They unpacked their dreams while the memory was still fresh. They wrote. Some simply lay in the dark, thinking. A medical guide from the 1500s told patients that the ideal time for studying and reflection was during what was called the watch, the calm hours suspended between first sleep and second sleep, when the mind settled and the world went quiet. For generations, historians had been reading these exact references, but kept mistranslating first sleep into something else, because they couldn't conceive of people sleeping any differently than we do today. Then science confirmed what history had been quietly saying all along. In 1992, psychiatrist Thomas Vare at the National Institute of Mental Health ran a now famous experiment. He gathered a group of volunteers and stripped every form of artificial light from their environment. For 1 full month, they spent 14 hours each night in total darkness, replicating roughly what our ancestors experienced before fire stretched out the evening. Within just a few weeks, every single participant fell into the exact same rhythm. 4 hours of sleep, 1 to 3 hours of quiet wakefulness, then 4 additional hours of sleep. Nobody instructed them to do this. Their bodies simply reverted to it, almost as if some ancient internal program had been sitting dormant the entire time. Vare also measured hormone levels during that wakeful stretch and found something extraordinary. Participants entered a state unlike any ordinary waking experience. Their brains produced elevated levels of prolactin, the same hormone released during deep meditation and after orgasm. They described the feeling as calm, reflective, almost trance-like. This wasn't just a gap inserted into sleep. It was its own distinct state of consciousness, one most modern humans have never experienced. So what destroyed it? The answer is simpler than you'd guess. Light. In the 1600s, cities began installing street lamps. Paris led the way under Louis XIV, who wanted to cut nighttime crime. London followed close behind. The night, once a realm of genuine danger, slowly became something people could safely move through. Then cheaper candles arrived. Then gas lighting spread through the 1800s. Then in 1879, Thomas Edison commercialized the electric light bulb, and within roughly a single generation, the night humanity had known for 300,000 years simply disappeared. And here's a detail almost nobody mentions. The word curfew comes from the French couvre-feu. It literally means cover the fire. In medieval towns, a bell would ring at night, signaling everyone to extinguish their fires, not purely for safety, but because night was meant to remain dark. Night was for sleeping. Night meant vulnerability. In many medieval European towns, walking outside after dark without a lantern was outright illegal. Night belonged to criminals and whatever people imagined lurking in the supernatural. People feared darkness in a way that's almost unimaginable to us now. And then, eventually, we defeated it entirely. We drowned it in light and called that progress. But here's exactly what we lost in exchange. Modern humans now sit exposed to artificial light for an average of 7 to 8 hours after sunset. That light, particularly the blue light radiating from screens, suppresses your body's production of melatonin, the hormone responsible for regulating sleep. Your body genuinely cannot distinguish between a light bulb and the sun. The moment light strikes your retina at 11 p.m., your brain interprets it as daytime. It delays melatonin release. It fragments your sleep cycle. It disrupts a circadian rhythm shaped over millions of years of evolution, Researchers have found that people who go camping for just 1 week with zero artificial light experience their melatonin cycles resetting by nearly 2 hours. Their bodies begin producing melatonin right at sunset instead of hours later. That's genuinely all it takes for 300,000 years of biological programming to reassert itself almost instantly. We erased an entire phase of human consciousness. That quiet, reflective state suspended between first sleep and second sleep, the one VAERS participants described as peaceful, almost meditative, no longer exists for most people on Earth. Instead, we get insomnia, and we treat it like a malfunction. But what if it isn't a malfunction at all? What if waking up at 2 in the morning and lying there in the dark isn't your body breaking down? What if it's your body quietly remembering exactly what it was originally built to do? For 300,000 years, your ancestors spent their nights inside a rhythm modern science is only now beginning to understand. They gathered around fires and told stories that eventually built entire civilizations. They slept across 2 distinct phases, with a window of quiet reflection in between. They lived inside a darkness so complete that the Milky Way wasn't something you had to drive hours to a national park to witness. It was simply the sky above them. And every night, when they woke briefly between first sleep and second sleep, they lay there in silence and thought about their lives, their dreams, and the world waiting for them at sunrise. We traded all of that for a light switch, and most of us never even noticed it was gone.